Today, we have some brand spankin' new Destiny 2 news, courtesy of the Bungie Weekly update that has just been released, detailing a bunch of new official information. There's a lot of stuff talked about in this update, but mainly, Bungie went into specifics about what exotic armor they are buffing in the next update, and exactly what those changes will entail, and there's some big ones. Guys, let's get started. What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Just before we dive into all of the new news, I've recently been partnered with ASTRO, so if you're looking for amazing gaming headphones, just check the description down below, get a discount code, save some money, and help me out. Simple as that. So let's jump right into this. Firstly, Bungie talked about Escalation Protocol, and I want to talk about this as well because it's a new activity added in the Warmind expansion. It's a very fun activity that's offering some incredibly powerful weapons that a lot of people want to get their hands on. But there is an absolutely massive barrier to entry, and the average player is going to find that not only do they have to level up a ton to be able to be viable in these type of activities, but not only that, they need a 9-person fire team, which isn't even supported. You can only matchmake with 3 people. Obviously, this has been complained about quite a bit by the community, and today Bungie did respond. Now, they did so in the form of a Q&A, with lead designer Jacob Benton answering questions. The first question was, what were the design goals for Escalation Protocol? Jacob says, Escalation Protocol was designed to be a high difficulty endgame activity for max level 3-player fire teams. Other players in the world can contribute to make it easier, but they shouldn't be required as long as your team is highly skilled and coordinated. We have received a lot of feedback since the original launch of Destiny 2 that players felt like reaching max power was not satisfying. There weren't enough activities that required and rewarded that level of commitment. Escalation Protocol was designed to fill that gap. That already seems very strange because, you have to be almost max light in order to do it, and yet it's supposed to fill the gap getting to max light. I don't know, but anyways, the next question is, so this activity was not specifically designed for 9 players? The answer, other than raid activities, all PvE activities and private spaces are optimized for 3 players to allow for multiple types of activities in the space. So no, it wasn't designed for it. But it's not a surprise that it's easier with 9 players, given how underleveled most of us are right now. We knew that players would use the same creative workarounds to get 9 players into a space similar to Court of Oryx, but we did not specifically tune the difficulty around requiring that many players. I'm going to give my thoughts on that statement after we do the last question, which is, any plans to enable larger fire teams in the future? We've had a lot of conversations here about what to do to answer the community's feedback. We're going to continue to monitor as more players progress to max power and are able to attempt Escalation Protocol at the difficulty it was designed for, and will determine what, if any, action is necessary. We also hear players are really enjoying large groups of players fighting against enemies, so we'll use that feedback to inform our future plans. So, while it's very good that Bungie is coming out and trying to clarify, the design thoughts behind Escalation Protocol, and this is a good level of communication, I'm left almost more confused than when I went into this Q&A, because firstly, it was designed to get you to max light, and yet it's also a max light designed activity. Well, what is it? You either design an activity to be able to be completed by people trying to reach max light, or an activity only designed for people who've already reached max light. So I don't know what Bungie means by that. In addition, what 3-person fire team is beating Escalation Protocol? Like, yes, maybe it's possible with a really well-oiled team, but even with when I do it and everyone around is 370 to 380 light, so it's not like we're slacking on light level, we're still mostly around 380. we are still needing that 9th person able to do it efficiently. Yes, we could probably do it with maybe 8 or 7, but it still so much feels like an activity that is designed for 9 players, especially with all of the supers that are really required in order to complete this activity. You need more people producing more supers, generating more orbs to really start chaining things together. Also, in my opinion, it shouldn't even be a question whether or not to enable 6-person fire teams, let's say, because not only are they more fun, but I can't think of a single downside for doing so. Oh no, you'll be able to do public events faster. Well, like, who cares? You can already do public events faster if more people show up. But you're basically eliminating the luck factor. Instead of having to luck out and have enough randoms nearby, you can control that situation and make sure that you do have enough teammates by matchmaking before you go into a public space. What is the issue with that? There shouldn't be any issue with that. We should actually put power back into the hands of the player, not just leave it to random chance. But it is time to move on and talk about the absolutely massive exotic armor buffs coming very shortly. The next update is going to hit with patch 1.2.1 releasing on May 29th. This patch is going to do several things, but one of those things is to again buff exotic armor. The exotic weapons got buffed recently and massively. Like, we're all gaining huge benefits, and I think the community is overall very pleased with the changes to exotic weapons. So, it's important to know that Bungie has chosen 6 exotic armor pieces to be buffed in this update, 2 for each class. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not. Instead of buffing all of the armor at one date later on, Bungie's going to buff a few of them with the May 29th update, and then in a later July update, it's going to have another go at buffing a bunch of armor pieces. So think of this as part 1 of exotic armor buffs, and certainly not all of them. But let's talk about the specific armor getting buffed, starting here with obviously the best class in the game. You guys all just wait until I say the Titan. Go to the comments and tell me how amazing your hunter is, for PvP especially. I know you're right, but the Titan here firstly is going to get the Synthoceps exotic gauntlets buffed. So the mechanical changes coming are: previously, the perk adjusted your melee damage depending on the number of enemies surrounding you. Now it grants a flat bonus to melee and super damage when you're surrounded by 3 or more enemies. The buff is retained for a short duration after you are no longer surrounded. Bungie goes on to clarify the buff, saying, although Synthoceps have gotten a fair bit of love in the Crucible, players are often focused on the increased lunge rate. The outgoing damage bonus was hard to appreciate and plan around with it being so variable in nature. With this change, you will be able to feel the impact more often in all scenarios, particularly in PvE. So those sound like some pretty big changes. For me specifically, I'm not even really concerned about the melee increase, I'm thinking about the super damage increase. Let's say you're on the Argos fight in the Eater of Worlds. You can run up to a bunch of enemies, really not hard to do, pop your super, pop your hammers, I'm thinking, get that damage bonus, which is going to linger, and then just start going to town on Argus. You're going to, again, get a damage bonus for those hammers just by being surrounded, and even if those enemies die, you accidentally hit them with a hammer, whatever, you are still going to get that damage bonus for a short time after you've stopped being surrounded. So that could lead to some pretty disgusting things. Moving on from there, we have the Lion Rampart exotic leg armor. The mechanical change is, get ready for this, you can hip fire while lift is active without interrupting it, and your aerial hip fire doesn't have an aerial accuracy penalty. The justification was the Lion Rampart was focused around lift and how it impacts your playstyle and tactics, so he decided to push further in that direction, emphasizing fast-moving aerial assault. Guys, what the heck? This actually sounds pretty darn decent, especially in PvP, where a lot of players want to be aggressive, want to be maneuvering and even shooting while airborne, and this is going to give you advantages for doing so. This is essentially giving the Titan access to abilities and combat styles previously only available to Warlock. And that is always a powerful thing to do. I expect to start seeing some more people using Lang Rampart in PvP, especially after this update goes live. Now moving on from there, we have to talk about another class, which is the Hunter. The first exotic piece being buffed is the Dragon's Shadow exotic chest piece. The mechanical changes include dodging reloads all weapons simultaneously. The effects of Wraith Metal Mail now also include a bonus to mobility, with the explanation being, although the Dragon Shadow does have a small following, we wanted to make it more useful in a general sense under even neutral conditions, while keeping it in the theme of a fast-moving ninja. So that doesn't sound like anything absolutely massive. Certainly getting a reload buff for all weapons is very, very good. It means you can mess around with your dodge options more, and getting extra mobility for something that already increases your speed, that's very, very powerful. Moving on from there, we have the Mechaneer's Tricksleeves exotic gauntlets. The mechanical changes are swapping to a sidearm while critically wounded will greatly increase its damage. The explanation being, we went for the fantasy of a holdout weapon, the pistol tucked into your sleeve that you will pull out in an emergency to save you. These changes should let you turn around a fight more easily. That, depending on the damage bonus, and they say greatly, so depending on the damage bonus, this could be really good. Like, you're often going to be wounded in a gunfight, so being able to just switch to a sidearm and then get a damage bonus, potentially one burst someone with one of the triple burst sidearms, like, that sounds very powerful. And as if you didn't see enough last hopes in PvP, well, they potentially got a lot better. So this is definitely something I think will make some sort of an impact in PvP, especially. Depending on the damage bonus and how much it lasts, maybe even PvE. We could see some disgusting stuff coming out of there too. But it is time to move on to the last class we're going to talk about, the Warlock. Firstly, the Lunafaction Boots exotic leg armor is getting a buff. The mechanical changes are Rift reload is automatic instead of being activated on entry and exit. Empowering Rift makes weapons more effective at extended ranges. The explanation is players having to dip in and out of the Rift to reload their weapons was not consistent with other Rift effects, particularly with the overshield effect on Healing Rift. It's been made automatic to be easier to understand and use. As this is a more offensive choice in terms of Rift exotics, we also wanted to further reward players who wanted to double down with Empowering Rift instead of playing it safe with Healing Rift. Okay, so for PvE, these just got way better. Like, way better. If I'm reading this right, automatic reload instead of being able to go in and out. Do you just constantly reload your weapon, like instantaneously? You shoot, you get it back immediately, as long as you're in the Rift? If that's the case, that sounds absolutely absurd. There's a chance, because it's not really worded super well, honestly, that it's just maybe on activation, it instantly reloads everyone, but, you know, it definitely seems like as long as your Rift is active, you're getting this reload effect, and if that's the case, this could start replacing some rally barricades in PvE loadouts. Like, that would be a huge change, and this is going to let Warlocks fill that Titan role and enable players to just go ham with rocket launchers or sniper rifles or whatever they want to use with this reload buff. So I'm mainly looking at that reload buff. That seems very, very powerful. But even to extend the range with Empowering Rift, I mean, you're already often popping an Empowering Rift on plates when you're damaging Callus in the Leviathan raid, for example. Being able to utilize stuff like maybe even SMGs, which have insane damage output but have a horrendous damage fall off, extending that range could make the Antiope potentially, especially if you're reloading it constantly, have more damage output than a traditional auto rifle you would otherwise use. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on for PvE. The last exotic being buffed is the Sunbracers exotic gauntlets. The mechanical changes here are original effect is replaced with increases the duration of solar grenades. Solar melee kills grant unlimited solar grenade energy for a brief time. Let me read that one more time. Solar melee kills grant unlimited solar grenade energy for a brief time. Okay, so the explanation is, while effective under some circumstances in terms of things like flat damage output with your solar grenade, Sunbracers didn't feel flashy enough for gloves where your hands are perpetually on fire. So, while retaining the original flavor of the solar grenade exotic armor, we've scaled up the potential output significantly to give players a strong taste of power on a more frequent basis. Okay, so is what this saying that you can just get a melee kill? So you melee a Scion, and then for a short time you can just chunk like 5 grenades? You just get unlimited solar grenade energy? That seems very, very powerful. And for PvP, this doesn't sound like, obviously that's good. You get a melee kill, you can just chuck several nades potentially. But I'm really thinking of PvE. You just melee one of those war beasts, again on the Callus engagement, jump on the plate, chuck 3 or 4 grenades. Holy crap, that's going to help your DPS. Like, that is really going to help your DPS. Then you just go to rocket launchers or whatever else you want to use. That is really interesting. And for area of denial as well, being able to melee a Scion in the throne room and then just lock down a whole area with 3 or 4 solar nades. Wow, that seems also very, very potent. So definitely the Sunbracers, I think, is also going to make a major impact in PvE, especially if this bonus is truly as insane as it sounds. Alright guys, now moving on from there, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the release date for patch 1.2.1. So, it's going to happen Tuesday, May 29th. It says that no downtime is expected. So, during this time, Destiny 2 update 1.2.1 will become available to players. The timeline is 9 a.m. Pacific. Destiny 2 server maintenance is scheduled to begin. Again, no downtime is expected. Then Destiny 2 update 1.2.1 will be available to install. So at this time, 9 a.m. Pacific on May 29th, make sure you have auto download enabled, or this is where you're going to have to manually go and start downloading. And then at 1 p.m. Pacific, Destiny 2 server maintenance is scheduled to conclude, and players who have not installed update 1.2.1 will be removed from activities, and you'll have to begin the download process. So that's the timeline from where that update is going to occur. Guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.